Hey all, Taves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo, and welcome back to Tiguidou Zoo. So, in the last episode, we did some detailing. We filled in some spaces. We've got the lighthouse over there. We did some additional work to update Seal Beach, and there's more to come on that one. So over in that area there, and we're getting down. We're getting down to the corner. Kind of getting. If I just do a zoom out, and actually I haven't shown you this in a while, but if we just do a zoom out of the whole of Tiguidou, we are getting down to kind of the last corner, the final corner. So I've got a bunch of ideas, a bunch of things to squeeze in here. As you'll have seen from the thumbnail and the title, there's some stuff going on in this area here, and there's going to be a kind of a secret. It's going to be a kind of secret area all back here, and it's going to feel like it's quite big because it's going to be quite a long kind of winding path. So we've got a whole bunch of work to do in this area, and we're on our way to kind of progressing towards the final stages of Tiguidou, at least in this corner. So let's jump into the speed build and I'll meet you over there. Okay, first things first, just a little bit of detailing going on. Just decided to make myself a slightly bigger hay bale, just combined a few hay bales together, and then yeah, just creating this little detail. This is going to be a little kind of education point. It's supposed to be that the sort of farmyard area is producing some goods, and that this is going to be a little point where children can learn about eggs and where they come from. So just create this little table. Wanted to use this little basket. Actually, the reason why the hay bales are under there is because you can see the basket goes down underneath the table. So just to hide that away, I thought I'd put the hay bales under there. So yeah, just creating this little feature, just a little detail, nothing too major. And it's in one of the stable buildings blocks, so you can see that there's sort of closed off section in there, and putting this little education screen in. So just a little thing, and you can see I've also added some hanging baskets and stuff like that around, a little bit more detail going on in here. And then we are pushing through. So previously this was a stable, and then I've opened it up and taken the back wall out of it, and I'm creating this sort of passageway through. So a couple of little, again, sort of education signs. Just found these two infographics that actually work really well. And then we're on to a whole bunch of landscaping. So what we're doing here is, obviously, if you've followed this series for a while, you've seen that Tiguidou has a stream running right through it. It started right at the top of the hill and it runs all the way through. And there's several different channels here. So we've been running these little streams down several different directions, and they're all going to culminate at the end or the bottom of the hill here. So just making this one slightly narrower, and I'm creating this little pond that you'll see me do more of in future episodes. Just actually putting the waterways in here, pushing all this terrain down just to create this little feature. I think at the point at which I was creating this, I didn't really have a particularly in mind what I was going to do with that pond, but it has actually now ended up being something that turns out pretty well, and you'll see that in a future episode. So just making sure I can actually get the water in, so just to shut off the path and things. And the big idea that happened in this episode was that if you've used the animal encounters, you'll know that guests can free roam inside a habitat. And what I just sort of discovered, and I don't think I've seen many other people really do this, but you can make your own little bridges, because guests are off the path. So technically I thought, well, look, you can see there's my little prototype that I created, and chickens are sort of walking over this little bridge. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a little series of sort of little streams running through this section? And if I increase the size of the habitat that the animal encounters is happening in, then I can, in theory, have guests sort of pathing around in this whole space without the needs to have paths. So as long as they can traverse over it exactly the same way that an animal does or a keeper does, then they can, then you'll see them kind of walking over features and things that don't need you to have the big blocky sort of path thing. So I create that first little wooden prototype, and then you see I've created a stone one. And it all works, and The one bit I haven't entirely seen yet, and you won't see this by the end of the episode, but we'll see it at a future point, is that whether or not guests will exit from a second gate. So as you know, there's for the animal encounters to work, there's like a walk-through habitat gate that they come through, and you can add more than one of those entry points into the same habitat. The game doesn't stop you from doing that, but I'm not entirely sure, although I do vaguely remember from the scenario that you could see guests entering and exiting through the habitat. So you see I've got a little test second gate there that I'd just delete there for a second. But I'm thinking, can you have more than one entry? Because if you can have more than one entry, guests will be able to path their way all the way through this habitat and come out the other side. Even if they can't, they will walk around and they'll go across to these little islands and things. And you can see I don't have to have a big bulky path there, and I can use my own shape custom bridges and things. And yeah, I think this is sort of, I mean, I'm not using this to its full extent, and hopefully no one else has done this yet, but I certainly haven't seen anyone using the potential of this to its full extent. So I'm going to play around with this quite a bit, and I think as long as you've got animals in there that are like animal encounter animals, then it should work for kind of anything. So even though I'm going to end up having chickens running around in this whole space, which is kind of fine, that means that I can have guests pathing anywhere. And I think this means that really you could probably have a whole zoo that doesn't need paths at all, and that guests just, I'm hoping this is making sense, but I think if you just had a walk-through habitat entrance at the beginning of a zoo, you could basically just have free roaming guests. Like you can see one over there that's just wandered off on the path and things. So yeah, I've added a bit more to this stream, added a few more decorations, put a couple of those paths in. I'm actually now working on the back path for the keepers to get to the horses. Actually, this is the back of that entrance, and you can see I've started to put a bit of fencing in, and this is actually where the llamas are going to end up. So there's going to be quite a lot more of this. You can see actually at the back of the donkeys there as well. It's going to be quite a lot more of this. It's going to be quite a lot more of this habitat, although it doesn't technically feel like it's all part of the same habitat, because obviously this has got the llamas in it. So it kind of feels like the two habitats butting up against each other. I hope this is all making sense. Let me know in the comments if it is. Basically, where I've extended this path is the original walkthrough habitat, and this is not guest pathing. This is guests just wandering around inside. Like we can see this guy doing it. They will basically make their own way. So as long as you make the path work, which is why I've included this sort of bit in the video, because I don't usually include this sort of stuff, but as long as you kind of block, so here's some sort of blocking the route that I don't want them to take, and making sure that they can traverse over the bit I want them to walk over, then they will do it. And they will do some like really odd things, like they're just walking over the water there, and as you can see there's no path. And it's just completely is based on the traversable area. So as long as I get that bit right and I keep it right, there we go, it's working now. They're walking over it, and so they will just wander around in this habitat. So as long as I can get the chickens wandering around anywhere in the habitat, the guests will wander around anywhere in the habitat, if that makes sense. So yeah, the llamas is sort of a secondary bit really, and I did do this on the original farmyard. There were habitats overlooking the sort of animal encounter section. If you remember what I did with the pigs originally, they can only be viewed by being in that habitat. So the llamas is, and you can see I've got guests kind of wandering everywhere now. So the llamas are just sort of secondary to that. Not particularly exciting animal. Just thought they'd fit in here quite well. But actually, at this point where I've kind of realised that this is possible, I've kind of got quite excited about a few ideas, both for Tiguidou and Zimba, of what you could do with this. So yeah, we will see more of this. So we're going to end up with a fairly simple, fairly small llama habitat. Not used to llamas before, but they're pretty cool. They're like, not super exciting. Just putting some fencing in. What is really important with this little path here, so in order for this to feel like quite a large addition to the zoo, this path has got to be sort of carefully managed so that it's not something that other guests can, that you can't see other paths basically, and that will help create a much bigger feeling for the guests and for this overall area. So kept this one pretty simple, just a bit of grass and things in there for the llamas and a shelter building. So let's just take a little wander around. Actually, we'll do that on pause, I think, just for a second, just because the frame rate's getting a bit funky. So that's the side of Penguin Point. I've done some updates on that and the details on that, and now we can see that the stream continues down. So we'll go in a ways back through into the farmyard. We might unpause it when we get in here just to see people wandering around. We've not got many people in the zoo at the moment, so there won't be loads. But yeah, there's my little eggy spot, a little bit of eggy facts. And now you go through here, and we go down this little. See this little pathway coming along down the side of the river. I also added this these little beehives in, just for a little bit of interest. Some education, and there's, as you said, there's the side of Penguin Point there, and we've got just unpause it for a second. We can see the stream running down, so a few little logs and things in the way. Hopefully it doesn't get too framey. The llamas are okay, just doing their thing, having a wee drink. Don't actually use this very often. I have checked it, make sure it does actually work, but we'll just poke our way in there as well. In fact, we'll go this way for a second. Let's jump over there. I did actually add a back door for the horses, and there is this pathway that runs along the back here now, which is keeper access, bumping along. Keeper access into the back of the llamas, so they've got this little shelter, pretty simple. And then if we go back over this way, well, it sounds like we've got guests stuck somewhere, but never mind. So yeah, so as I said in the speed build, this is not path, right? So I can make this really small. In fact, this is probably not doing like particularly justice to it, because it's not that obvious that there's not just a path there, to be fair. But what will get interesting is we progress through this little series of islands, and there is my gate over there in the distance. So that's it for this one. There's a few little before and afters for you. Hope you enjoyed this one, little short episode. My name is Toves. Do not forget to like and subscribe, it's very much appreciated, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.